Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
And welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bison Media Zone here on WDAY Extra. Perfect setting for today. It is National Signing Day for the late period. Of course, we have the early signing period that takes place in December. This is the traditional first Wednesday in February, which forever and a day was the big day around all across the country for colleges to announce their signing classes. Now it's turned into the additional signing period where some teams actually are signing quite a few players. Montana today is adding 20 players onto its football team. North Dakota State, a smaller amount. 4 are being added today. 2 transfers and 2 high school players that are going to come on to the Bison football roster for 2024. You met them during Hot Mic today, but in case you missed it, we'll dive into each of these players. Jacob Kilzer is the first, a QB transfer that is coming in from the Air Force Academy. Now, he said, as he mentioned in our first hour, actually went to the Air Force prep, so he wasn't in the official academy, but he was attending Air Force from Maple Grove, Minnesota. He is a large individual, 6'3", 195 pounds, led Maple Grove to a state championship in 2022. It was a 3-year starter for head coach Matt Lombardi. They went 26-2 during his 2 years as a starter. As I mentioned, 13-0 in 2022 when they won the state championship in Class 6A. He was the Minnesota All-Metro Player of the Year, according to the Star Tribune. And the really intriguing part about Kilzer, as we heard in our first hour, is he played his entire senior season with 2 torn labrums. And his right throwing shoulder actually was injured when he was at an NDSU football camp back in June of 2022. He is fully healed, had surgery on both, and is ready to go. He is actually already enrolled at NDSU and will be able to participate in spring workouts for the Bison when they begin next month. So he is now the 5th quarterback that'll be on the Bison football roster for this upcoming year, joining the likes of Cam Miller, Cole Payton, Nathan Hayes, and, of course, the true freshman and Trey Drake, and now Kilzer will join. The intriguing part about him, he also has 4 years of eligibility that will come with him, including a redshirt year. So, in truth, he has 5 years of eligibility in front of him, which will make for an intriguing decision going forward in the quarterback room for the Bison, because you have another year here with Cam Miller as quarterback. Cole Payton is entering his junior year this upcoming season for NDSU. He has 2 years left of eligibility. Then you have Hayes and Drake, each Hayes with 3, Drake with 4 years of eligibility remaining. It's going to present an interesting decision-making for Tim Polasek going forward, especially if Cole Payton decides, well, maybe he wants to try the FBS waters after this upcoming season. Something to keep an eye on for the Bison after this year. They also signed, we met him a few weeks ago, the big offensive lineman from Pittsburgh, and Trent Fraley, offensive lineman that spent the last couple of years at Marshall. He played in 1 game against Norfolk State in his true freshman year of 2022. He actually played in the bowl game in Frisco for Marshall just this past December before entering the transfer portal. All-conference player, 3-year starter out of high school. He is the son of Hank Fraley, who's the current offensive line coach of the Detroit Lions. So he is part of the transfer class. He's also been on campus for the better part of a month and could see himself playing up front with the Bison this upcoming year, considering the departures they've had on the offensive line. He plays center. He plays guard. Those are 2 spots the Bison have some immediate needs at. So that'll be a guy to keep an eye on when we get to spring football here in the not-too-distant future. They also signed 2 high school players, both out of the Twin Cities, out of the state of Minnesota. Gage Schmidt and Jack Hansen each are signing today. Hansen out of Eagan, Minnesota, plays defensive line, big guy as well. We have some video of each of these guys. Hansen is 6'4", 255 pounds, 3-year starter for the Wildcats. He also is a teammate of Keegan Wilson, who is an Eagan kid. This is video of Gage Schmidt from Mankato West High School, another really dynamite high school football program. Teammates with Makai Collins and Owen Johnson, who are both Mankato West superstars that are now members of the Bison football team. So those are the 2 guys that they'll be bringing in for this upcoming class out of the high school ranks. Hansen, 3-time All-Conference, 22 tackles for loss, 10 sacks in his career, 20 tackles during his senior season. For Gage, Schmidt, the offensive lineman, 2-time district lineman of the year, part of a 5A state championship team in his sophomore season that Makai Collins was on a couple years ago before he came to NDSU. So the Bison have always feasted there in the Twin Cities and continue to do so. Now, Tim Polasek tells me that there's a potential to add another player into this class. Nothing of certainty yet, but there is the potential for another addition. This is just the first day of the late signing period, so something to keep an eye on there for NDSU as they look forward. But that brings the total now to 24 players that have signed for the incoming class, going back to the 20 that did, which is important to go back to the Kilzer topic, is because Ryan Bowe, who was the long-awaited QB that was going to sign at NDSU, of course, decommitted, ended up going to Northwestern in December. Now the Bison are able to bring in a quarterback, which they want to do for every class. They have done that now with the class of 2024. And even despite the defections that they had, of Maxwell Woods, who ended up going to South Dakota State, we mentioned Bowe going to Northwestern, they are really impressed with what this class could potentially be, including some of the local flavor that they got this upcoming season. So be interested to see. Some of these guys we mentioned are already on campus, including Donovan Woolen, the Frisco kid. He enrolled early, so he's already here. He'll be participating in spring ball along with the 2 transfers that NDSU announced today. So that's the latest on the incoming class for 2024. We'll break. We come back. You're going to meet NDSU's. Actually, before we do that, we got to do some hoop stuff because that is largely important here. I got ahead of myself. We got a huge weekend on tap for Bison basketball. The men are home. The women are on the road. We got a big game coming up for you here tomorrow night. The Bison men start right now currently in 8th place in the Summit League standings after a win against South Dakota State and the loss against UND on Saturday. The Bison are 3-5 currently in the Summit League with 2 home games coming up. 2 teams directly ahead of them in the standings in Kansas City and in Omaha. The Bison split these games the first time around. They won in overtime, double overtime as it was at Kansas City. They lost in overtime at Omaha. These are winnable games for North Dakota State. And as you look at the standings, nobody has separated themselves. The top 2 teams of the league each have 3 losses heading into play this weekend. Here's a look at the schedule for tomorrow night's game. We mentioned the Bison in Kansas City, which we'll preview that in a second. Denver and South Dakota set to go at it. Remember the last time they played when Tommy Bruner went for 49. The Pioneers, though, come in. They've lost 3 games in a row. UND is the hottest team going. They've won 6 straight. They get Omaha up at the Betty tomorrow night. And that game in St. Paul should be a dandy. Oral Roberts and St. Thomas. The Golden Eagles won the first time they played. I'm really interested to see how this one goes down between St. Thomas and ORU. They have made no bones about it that they're ready to be contenders in the league. Let me correct myself. Oral Roberts lost to St. Thomas by 11, that game in Tulsa. So the Tommies would have the tiebreaker and the season sweep over the Golden Eagles if they're able to get that one tomorrow night. A heads up for our game, by the way, the Bison in Kansas City. That game will air on WDAY tomorrow night. So make sure you join us coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Kansas City, North Dakota State. Live coverage on WDAY statewide of the Bison and the Roos. You'll see that one coming up tomorrow night on WDAY. Meanwhile, on the women's side, the Bison women sit currently in 2nd place. They are just a game and a half back of South Dakota State, but of course the Jacks have the tiebreaker with that victory in Fargo last week. The Bison getting the split by winning at UND. Now they head out and they're playing the 2 last place teams, Omaha and Kansas City. Now they split on this road trip last season, so be interested to see if they are able to go out and take care of business. Elle Evans is playing at an unbelievable clip. So off a 33-point game that she had coming up this past Saturday against UND. She's played well against these teams in the past. The Bison swept Kansas City and Omaha when they came to Fargo. Chance to put the hammer down, put some distance between everybody else, especially Oral Roberts, who lost last week at Denver. So We'll see what happens as the Bison leave today. We'll visit with Jory Collins coming up tomorrow on Hot Mic. Now, we will break. When we come back, you'll hear from new Bison offensive coordinator Jake Landry about taking over the job after his 1 week at UND, what he's hoping to bring to the table in Grand Forks. Bison Media Zone rolls on here on WDAY Extra. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, here at Bison Media Zone. You saw some video there from yesterday's press conference where NDSU officially announced the three new coaches, Devin Klieman joining Jake Landry along with Will Johnson. You see a little bit of video of Will Johnson here from his days playing cornerback at Oklahoma. Long-awaited time here for each of these guys to be fully introduced, especially for Jake Landry, the Grand Forks kid who went on and played quarterback at the University of North Dakota before he started his college career and intersected at Northern Illinois with one Tim Polasek when Polasek left North Dakota State in 2013 to coach at Northern Illinois for that one season. A bond was formed then, and ever since the two have been tight. Now Landry went on and started his coaching career, went to Temple, back to Northern Illinois, had a stint in Division III, ended up coaching the last couple of years at St. Thomas in the Pioneer Football League with former Bison assistant Glenn Caruso. 3 weeks ago, he was officially announced as the new offensive coordinator at UND, his alma mater, replacing Danny Freund, who took the job at South Dakota State. But after Tyler Roll's decision just a few weeks ago to leave NDSU for Tennessee State, Polasek gave a call to his old buddy Jake Landry, and the rest, they say, is history. My conversation yesterday now with the new Bison offensive coordinator about spurning his alma mater and getting a chance to work with Tim Polasek.
The last 14 days, I know the timing was what it was, but just describe this and how difficult it was. I know how much UND means to you. How difficult was it to tell Coach Schweigert then I'm going to take this opportunity?
Yeah, to be transparent, it wasn't an easy conversation, and like I said, it wasn't ever intended to be the way that it was, and didn't want the timing to happen the way that it was. And I'd had conversations with Tim prior to Tyler leaving when Tim was getting the job. If something happened, this could happen. And ultimately, I didn't think when I made the move from St. Thomas to North Dakota that there would be a change, and ended up happening the way that it did. And ultimately, like I said, I didn't want it to happen the way that it did, but ultimately it did, and here we are.
When you heard about the opening when Tyler left, it was like, okay, this is something I've been wanting for a while. I got to hop on this.
Yeah, like I said, Tim's been a big mentor for me, and to be able to come to a program like North Dakota State and to be able to work here and to have that be a part of my coaching career just is going to do so much for me personally, and I just hope I can give some back to the program as much as I know I'm going to get out of it.
Describe your relationship with Coach Caruso. What do you got out of your time at St. Thomas, and how can you apply that now to here?
Yeah, the great 2 years there. We won a conference championship our first year and lost one conference game our second year, and the transition that's been made at St. Thomas is remarkable in all sports, really. And, I think they got a really good thing going there.
What is a hallmark of a Jake Landry offense? You know what people expect with North Dakota State is to run the ball, occasionally throw it. What are the expectations, or what are the hallmarks of how an offense that you run?
Yeah, I think, one of the core values of this program is being tough. And, I think winning the line of scrimmage, the DNA of NDSU football is not going to change. It's not like we're going to go to the spread offense or triple option or something crazy. I think you win football games by winning the line of scrimmage, and I think that will continue to show up, and that we will emphasize throughout spring ball of competing in every aspect of every drill that we're doing and being tough and working through it that way.
From afar, or did any cross tape come of watching a Cam Miller and a Cole Payton? Had you seen them from afar prior to coming here?
Yeah, over time, the Pioneer Football League does play teams in the Missouri Valley. So with Drake being a team that North Dakota State has played a couple times now in my time at St. Thomas. But being in there the last week has been awesome to be able to study all the guys that we got coming back. And I'm excited to get to work with this group. It's a veteran group, and there's a lot of explosiveness in this offense right now, and I'm excited to work with those guys.
What's the the advantages of that, of having an offense of such experience with Randy there, that you're relying on them for the next 6-7 weeks when spring ball starts?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I really am, to be able to walk into the leadership that we do have here, to be able to collaborate. You know, Coach Dan Larson and Coach Hedberg, Coach Bashawner, Coach Crutchley. I have unique relationships with all those guys, and to be able to come in and know who I'm working with right away is very comforting. You know, and now to be able to go in and challenge each other eventually. I think for me, it's right now getting caught up to speed of what's been done here, you know, and how can we work together to make it better.
You know how good a league the Missouri Valley Football Conference is. What are you most excited about to see of going up against these kind of defenses, and how that's going to challenge you on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I think it's what Coach Polasek just said, that, you know, you got to win every day, and to win in this league, you got to win every week. You know, and I think that's what's exciting to coming here, that every week's going to be an opportunity to prove that we're a good football team, and that's going to start. It's starting now with our guys, and whether it's working on individual things or as a group, that you got to win each day. So when we get to the fall, we know each week's going to be a battle, and they're all going to be different battles. But I'm excited for the opportunity, because right now the Missouri Valley is one of the best conferences in college football, not just the level that we're at.
I know the saying is blood is thicker than water. How have things gone in Grand Forks since people found out, your family found out you're a UND guy, you're going to be coaching at NDSU? Has this been uncomfortable at all the last couple of weeks?
No, I can't control what certain people say. The people that matter to me understand the decision, and you know, I've actually gotten a lot of supportive text messages from people that matter to me, and that's been the most rewarding thing for me. The people that I kind of thought might be on the fence, to be honest with you, have been really supportive of me, and even the guys that have reached out supporting me in the decision that I made has been really, really awesome.
Jake Landry, new Bison offensive coordinator, who has got some interesting pieces to be able to work with for this upcoming football season, and he's getting to know them right now from his quarterbacks. He's also going to coach the running backs, as was announced yesterday by Tim Polasek. So Randy Hedberg will still be in the mix for the Bison coaching staff as the QB coach for this upcoming season, which is a little different than usually. The offensive coordinator may also double as the quarterbacks coach. That will not be the case for the Bison football staff in 2024. We thought that may complete the hiring. It is not. Polasek did say yesterday that Jeff Phelps is leaving, the defensive tackles coach for this past season. Phelps is leaving for a job at the University of Wyoming, so there is another opening there. We know 2 years ago that Nick Gazer coached the entire defensive line, and that I don't think Matt Entz was a big fan of, so I imagine that Polasek is going to go find another staff member here to wrap up the defensive side of the ball. When that is all said and done, then the Bison are going to have 3 new coaches on defense, joining Johnson and Devin Klieman in the secondary. Will now be the new defensive tackles coach, with Gazer being elevated now to be coaching the defensive line and also being co-defensive coordinator. Grant Olson will remain the linebackers coach, while also being the defensive coordinator. So there's going to be a bit of newness, everything around the Bison football program. Certainly the staff, the team may be pretty familiar with the amount of guys returning, but certainly staff-wise, going to look much different for this upcoming season. Of course, we'll have full coverage of that each and every Wednesday here on the Bison Media Zone as we get closer to the start of spring football, which is right now about 6 weeks away before NDSU is back out on the football field. A reminder, we've got a big weekend of basketball coming up for you here on both WDAY Extra and WDAY. Tomorrow night, you'll see NDSU welcome in Kansas City. The Roos right ahead of NDSU. Note, we will be on WDAY with this game tomorrow night, 7 o'clock from the Shield Center between the Roos and the Bison. Then we're back with you on Saturday at 1 o'clock for Omaha and NDSU. Bison sit at 3-5 in the Summit League standings. Got a chance to win a couple games and potentially move up. With how crowded things are in the Summit League race right now, they need to start taking advantage of games at home. 5 of the last 8 for NDSU are being played in Fargo. That'll wrap up this week's edition of the Bison Media Zone. If you missed anything, we'll podcast this later today. You can check it out at inforum.com. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you back here next Wednesday.